Okay, we are back. I got disconnected unfortunately, but just gonna be talking about the last couple cards of the deck and then the TC deck, and we shall be good. So I have two Thundermans. This one's pretty obvious. Really good for just applying damage, and then you get a bubble. So technically, since we have a max of four bubbles plus this fifth bubble, we end up getting seven storm bubbles. So it allows you to put a lot of pressure. I like doing it into a shield. The ideal scenario for using it is, say they have a shield and they have a bubble that is not your bubble. Using a Thunderman's really nice. So one way that I like to use this card is I will regular Storm Bubble, I will regular Dark Wind or Sanctuary with when they have a shield up. And what this will do is it'll make them have to decide, oh, do they hit me? Do they change the bubble? And if they change the bubble and I Thunderman, then I get that shield clear plus I have my bubble now. So now they have to think, oh, do I shield and leave the storm bubble or do I change the storm bubble? And if they change the storm bubble, I get a good hit. So it's all about crafting these scenarios where you can kind of pincer your opponent logically, such that they don't have any really good moves. And this comes from a lot of experience, thinking ahead. If you think like a couple moves ahead, you kind of play out, oh, what's my opponent going to do? What are their possible actions? And you take that and you say, okay, well, how could I respond a couple moves in ahead by making a move now? Because typically how you will lose games is you get into these pincer positions, and so if you're able to predict them, you can kind of, avoid them earlier. And so it's all about just thinking about these pincer positions. So, for example, this wouldn't work if I had 5 pips, because if I Thunderman, I'm left with 1 pip, and they will now no longer have a shield or a bubble, but I don't really have anything to follow it up with. So it's really good for using it when you have a lot of pips, where now you just get an open hit with, say, like a Triton or a Catalan or a Clanker. So it's all about coming up with these nice pincer scenarios to really, really clamp down on your opponent. So that's why I pack 2 Thundermen. Then I have 1 Stormblade. The Stormblade is very peculiar. This is something that I'm running with Catch of the Day because I got Catch of the Day recently. This is something I'm trying out. You can honestly remove these two. It's, if you don't have them, that's fine. But the general idea here, this little combo that I came up with, is to Catch of the Day, Lightning Elf, which I have unequipped right now, but the general idea is to Catch of the Day and then Lightning Elf. Let me just equip my Lightning Elf pet again, just so I have it. Here we go. So the general idea is to Catch of the Day, Lightning Elf. So now, and ideally you have a Dark Wind up when you do this. So if you can, even Catch of the Day into a shield if you have a bubble up. Now you have 245 blades that you just got from Catch of the Day. You Lightning Elf with the bubble. Say they shield again, which they probably will, because you now have 245 blades. If they don't shield, they take an open 45 hit. With the bubble, it's an open 60 hit. That'll just like kill anyone with a Triton or something. But if they, end up deciding, hey, I'm going to shield, then you Lightning Elf, and this does 250 a round against most opponents. If they have like 39 resist, I think it does 230 a round. So really, really strong, really, really strong. And so what you can then do is you can follow it up with a Stormblade. And so now you have a 45 and a plus 35 Stormblade, which is just absolutely broken. Plus they're taking like 250 a round. So that's 750 in total. So plus they took the Catch of the Day hit. Even if it was into a shield, that's like 400. So they've already taken like 1,100. So say you're going against a fire, they're a hit from dying. And then you could either Lightning Elf again, hit through a shield. I mean, at that point, you just kind of win with that combo. But so really nasty combo. And I'm going to try to get the Null Stormy Dragon pet, which will give 3 Lightning Elves. So if I Storm Elf, again with 2 blades in a bubble now, I mean, now that's probably doing like, I want to say 300, 325. and so around, so that's another 900. So that just kills. And if they don't shield, so or you can just wait out their shields. There's just so much counterplay that you can really do to effectively just end them. At that point, you could shield. You could do a lot of stuff. So it's all about creating these dynamic combos. So that's one thing I'm testing right now with Catch of the Day, which I recently got this week. So yeah, super exciting. But then I have 3 thermic shields. These are pretty decent against going against ice and going against balance. You really want to get your thermic shields up against balance to really prevent the Hydra. That's the main reason for that. Ideally you want it first round, second round, and you want 2 of these stacked. If you're going against balance, you want to try to get 2 of these stacked on you. So that way if they fire wand, you're not really open to a hit. And what you can then do once you have 2 of these stacked, they'll stop thinking about Hydraing. They'll just like erase Hydra from their mind. And they'll delete fire wands, because they're not going to be like, oh, I'm going to do 2 fire wands. That's just kind of a waste. So they'll start deleting fire wands. And then what you can do is you can tower shield. And now they have really no response to it because they've probably deleted wands. They can't really Hydra because you have the thermic shield up. So it's a really good situation. And then they have to hit through your tower shields. They can't really do anything against the tower shield. So getting these 2 of these up is really nice against a balance. And then ice, obviously, really, really nice, especially because their only way they can really attack you is through frostbite, which you just use mediation for. So really, really strong against balance and ice. So that's why I have 3 of them in. Then I have 3 Tritons. I always want to be able to pull a Triton. And so typically, I think right now this deck, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 times, I think 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so 48, 49. So 3 out of 49 chance of pulling. Say I delete all my cards. I guess 3 times 7, 21 out of 49 chance I get a Triton the next round if I delete all my cards. So that's pretty decent. And so essentially, within 2 rounds, I can always have a Triton. So if I think I'm going to need a Triton, I can just delete a lot of cards. And in 2 rounds, I'm like almost statistically guaranteed to pull a Triton if I delete a bunch of cards. So yeah, it's always good to have Triton. If you have a bubble, it does like 1700, just like base Triton. So that's super nice. If they have a tower shield, it usually will do 1000. So because of how Pierce works. So Triton's very good overall. Then Steel Pip's just really OP, especially if you use it first round. There's no better move to use first round than Steel Pip, or even second round usually than Steel Pip. So Steel Pips is really strong. But yeah, that's the main deck. I keep in the Cleanse Ward. So if they just trap me randomly, I'll just Cleanse Ward. And that's really strong. I don't know if I touched on the disarms, but really if they blade, you just disarm. And same with Cleanse Ward. If they trap, you just Cleanse Ward and you come out ahead. Same with Cleanse. If they infection you, weakness you just cleanse and you come out ahead. So all of these are really nice. So I have like 4, 5, 6 of these spells to really gain pips and get into an advantageous state. So really, really nice because they kind of just negate the opponent move. Eye of Vigilance is pretty decent as well. I was running that. Might run it again, but so far I'm not having it in the deck just to reduce the deck space. But this is also a really good card to have. And then, yeah, keeping the Darkwind, 2 Storm Elves. If you don't go the Storm Elf pet, then you can put in some of these wands, I guess. Okay, so that's the main deck. I hope this was pretty comprehensive. I hope, this outlined really strategies you can do with this particular deck. Then we have the TC deck. And now the TC deck, I vary a lot. I change a lot all the time. I think what I've, ended with pretty consistently, though, is, and this will for sure not change, is 2 Glacial Fortresses, really to, stop the vampire spammers. And for the balance, 3-fold spammers as well. So it's really nice to have these 2. Then we have 6 tower shields. This is really good. Sometimes I'll take out a tower shield and potentially add in another fire shield. It's really just kind of up to you and how you're playing. And, with this strat, I like 6 tower shields. Tower shields are really nice. I try not to dig for them early, so I have them later in the game when they're a little more useful. You could also you pack steel wards. Steel wards are also nice. These are all, good things to have, but personally I just am fine with the 6 tower shields. Then I have 1 mediation just in case I really, really, really need it. And I haven't pulled my 2 mediations. This is just kind of backup reserve emergency mediation. 2 fire shields. This is really interesting. This is actually more for fighting balance than it is for fighting fire. I'll just use the fire shields and they will not hydra me because it's a -80 fire shield. And if they use a regular TC Hydra, they're missing a full damage, and if they're using the buffed one, they're also missing a full damage. So it's really not that great. And then also it's good against fire because if you have too many shields on and they Elephant, then it's gonna leave this like really nasty overtime. But if you just have 1 fire shield on and they Elephant, it's going to be like less than 100 a round, so it'll maybe just do like an additional 250 over the course of 5 rounds, and by then you have mediation and you can heal 800 from it, so you can really just take advantage of them, using Elephant through the fire shield. Also tower shield as well, if they Elephant through the tower shield. That's actually one thing I do want to touch on in the normal deck. Do not use these thermic shields against fire if they have like anywhere near 6 pips. It's just do not use them. You stick to tower shield and stick to fire shield. If there's some weird scenarios where it works, but for the 99% of the time, just use the fire shield and the tower shields. Then empower is really good. If you fail pipped and you just want to empower, that's great. If you have a weakness and you empower, that's great. It's really good for setting up Stormlord. So empower is, generally good. Another really good use of empower that I really like is when people start to feint spam into like shatter. Then you can actually remove feint and like curse with the empower, and it's a really, really nice trick to really stopping a lot of these spammers because you can kind of get yourself into a way you can pincer them into getting a free hit and really change the tempo of the game, because say they're at max pips and they feint you and you tower shield and they just keep shattering waiting for you to run out of tower shields. Eventually you'll run out of tower shields if they're running that strategy, but then you can just empower and then now you have no feint on you, and so they either have to refeint or do some move, but that gives you a little bit of clawback wiggle room. So really, really good, because typically they'll delete other feints, or typically they'll just pack 1 feint and they won't expect it, so they usually won't be able to refeint. So it's really nice to empower, or if you're low on pips, it's also good. 3 clankers. 3 clankers are really good. This does about 1k with the current setup. So really, really good spell. And, typically it will, be really solid. It does like 13.5 in bubble, sometimes 13. So yeah, really, really great spell. And it's a really prime hitter. And you can hit through tower shields. You can hit through a lot of stuff. Does a lot of damage. If you don't have Clanker, you can always run Street Sweeper, but if you really just want to, climb, you just got to get the Clankers. That extra damage really helps. I have a Storm Beetle here. I don't use it too often, but if you decide not to run a Lightning Elf pet, you should definitely pack some more of these Storm Beetles. Then I have a Crocopatra 5 pip. This is a lifesaver. This is a must-have. You can either use Dodaga or this Crocopatra 5 pip. And so the reason for it is a lot of times people will not expect that you have this. This does almost as much as a Triton. Triton does 920. Crocopatra does 830. So it's like a Triton hit for 5 pips, and hardly anyone expects it. They're like, oh, Clanker doesn't kill. So and they fail pipped for Triton. So let's just send this. Or let's just, not shield or something. And I'll always get people with this Crocopatra 5 pip. Also, if you, Stormlord fail pip, you Crocopatra. And I only keep 1, and typically I'll delete all my cards after I Stormlord. Just in case I fail pip for the Triton, I'll have the Crocopatra ready. So it's a really, really good spell. I actually tend to Stormlord into Crocopatra more than I Stormlord into Triton, funnily enough. And it works pretty much the same. 3 Worm Guts. These are really good for just clearing shields. This does 500 damage, 550 damage. If you have no buff, it can do like 600 to 700 if you have a bubble. So, I mean, this is just a really, really powerful spell. And yeah, great for taking off shields. Great for, if you're one kill shot away, you can just use 3 worm guts, and that'll just like really tinker them down to the point where, you could even just kill through a shield with a clanker. So it's all about like pushing them right under the echelon of being in kill range. So worm guts is really good. Then we have 2 reshuffles. Reshuffles, the only reason why I pack 2 is for going against life. Sometimes you can use it against death and ice in some longer games, but typically with this setup, you will, end the game sooner. It's good for bubble wars, so if for some reason you're fighting the super long bubble ward, you just reshuffle early and get all your bubbles back, so that's really nice. So 2 reshuffles, yeah, you could probably get away with 1, but if you go against a Jade, you just need 2, so it's just to really pressure the bubble war. So that's why I run 2. And then finally, I have 6 weaknesses. So these weaknesses are really good. I highly recommend just spamming them against fire, spamming them against death, spamming them against life, spamming them against. Actually, life I wouldn't spam them, but yeah, death, fire. You want to sometimes use only 1 against ice because you don't want them to snowman you. So typically don't put more than 1 on ice. But yeah, fire, death, a little, and then balance for sure. Don't use them against myth. Maybe 1 if you have a shield, but that's like, yeah, I wouldn't use them against myth. But yeah, overall that is the TC deck. That is, a little bit of just general guidance as to my thought process and, what goes into every card. I really wanted to make this as detailed as possible. I will be coming out with a part 2 that, explains some like really, really interesting gear setups and deviations you can do, but this is, a really, really fun setup that I really enjoy. So, oh, also I'll mention that you craft these glacial fortresses with arena tickets. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I haven't posted in a little while. I've actually been under the weather. I've been playing a lot because I've been under the weather, but yeah, it's been good to just to make this video. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll be posting some more PvP soon. Cheers.